The crimson light of the Xylar council chamber pulsed, reflecting off the obsidian walls and casting grotesque shadows across the assembled dignitaries. Outside, the binary suns of Xylos blazed, but within the air was cold, thick with apprehension, the metallic tang of fear clinging to the intricate bioluminescent tapestries that depicted the rise and fall of empires, all, until now, Xylar empires. The Grand Arbiter, a being of living crystal with eyes that burned like dying stars, surveyed the chamber. His usually serene face was etched with a constellation of worry lines. Before him, ranked in tiered seating, were representatives of the ruling houses, their diverse forms a testament to the myriad species that had sworn fealty to the Xylar dominion. Their mandibles clicked, their chitinous shells shifted, and the air crackled with the unspoken question that hung over them like a shroud: humanity. For weeks, the reports had filtered in, unsettling whispers of a species that defied categorization. The first contact had been, by all accounts, a complete miscalculation. Their primitive technology, barely registering above the level of pre-spaceflight civilizations, had lulled the Xylar High Command into a false sense of security. The initial scouting probes, dispatched with the dismissive arrogance that had defined the Dominion for millennia, returned with data that was, to put it mildly, insulting. Vessels of crude construction, utilizing energy sources that were laughably inefficient. Weapons systems that, in comparison to the Dominion's sophisticated plasma lances and phase disruptors, were akin to sharpened sticks. The Xylar military, veterans of countless interstellar conflicts, had prepared for a swift, decisive campaign. They anticipated an easy conquest, a minor skirmish to expand the Dominion's already vast territories. Instead, they were now teetering on the precipice of galactic annihilation. The reports continue to be contradictory, the Arbiter finally intoned, his voice a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the chamber. The probes indicate technological backwardness, yet the engagements tell a different story. Their defenses are effective, surprisingly so. A ripple of unease swept through the assembled dignitaries. The House of Tar, renowned for its military prowess, made a collective shift. The Arbiter fixed his gaze on its representative, a hulking creature with obsidian plates and razor-sharp claws. Admiral Tar, your fleet encountered this human armada in the Zidonian sector. What is your assessment? Admiral Tar rose, his movements deliberate, his voice a guttural rasp. The initial engagement was predictable. Their vessels, as the reports indicated, were inferior in design and firepower. We engaged with the expectation of a swift victory. Then they adapted. He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. Their defensive capabilities were far greater than the probe data suggested. Their energy shielding absorbed our plasma strikes with an efficiency we have not encountered in centuries. And their targeting, it was almost unnerving. Every volley found its mark, disabling our vessels with a precision that bordered on preternatural. A wave of murmurs broke out in the chamber. The implications were clear. The humans, despite their apparent technological limitations, were proving to be formidable adversaries. This wasn't merely a technological gap. It was a fundamental difference in strategic thinking, a level of adaptability that had caught the Xylar completely off guard. The House of Krill, known for its technological expertise, spoke next. Its representative, a sleek insectoid being with multifaceted eyes, began. We have analyzed the captured wreckage, cross-referenced the sensor data, and studied the residual energy signatures. Their weapons, they are crude, as the first probes reported. However, their kinetic energy weapons are highly effective. Their designs are so simple that they defy proper analysis, but the damage they inflict is unparalleled. The Grand Arbiter turned towards the House of Kython, the oldest and wisest of the houses, known for its unmatched understanding of ancient galactic civilizations. Its representative, an ethereal being composed of shifting light, spoke in a voice that was barely a whisper. We have been studying the pattern of human actions, their diplomatic attempts, their internal struggles from the limited data we have acquired. They do not behave like any species we have encountered. Their motivations are unclear. Their morality is perplexing. A collective intake of breath swept through the chamber. Morality. In the cutthroat politics of the Xylar Dominion, the concept was practically extinct. Alliances were forged and broken on a whim, driven by the relentless pursuit of power and expansion. But humanity seemed to adhere to a code of conduct that baffled the Dominion. They offered terms of peace even as the vessels tore through Xylar warships. They attempted negotiations even after being attacked. They sacrificed their own advantages to protect the innocent. This was alien, and it was deeply unsettling. The arbiter paused for a long moment, the silence of the chamber amplifying the unspoken anxieties. Then, with a sigh that echoed through the vast space, he announced, "The Council of Houses will now convene in closed session. We must consider our options. The future of the Dominion hangs in the balance." The chamber slowly emptied, the representatives of the houses dispersing into the labyrinthine corridors of the citadel, their minds consumed by the specter of humanity, the seemingly simple yet utterly unpredictable species that threatened to shatter the foundations of their interstellar empire. The closed session was even more fraught with tension. The whispers turned into shouts, the arguments into accusations. Hawks were advocating for an all-out offensive, a decisive strike to crush the human threat before it could truly take hold. Doves, on the other hand, argued for a cautious approach, for further study, for diplomatic overtures, a strategy that would have sounded ridiculous only a cycle ago. The House of Shtar, its military prestige tarnished by the Zidonian debacle, was particularly vocal in its support for the offensive. They needed to redeem themselves, to prove that their warriors were still the most formidable force in the galaxy. The House of Krill, despite its technological prowess, was hesitant. The humans' adaptability had them spooked. The speed at which they had countered the Xylar tactics, the way they had anticipated the attacks, suggested a level of strategic understanding that far exceeded their own. And the House of Kython, steeped in the echoes of forgotten civilizations, was urging the Dominion to proceed with extreme caution. The humans, they claimed, reminded them of an ancient species, one that had fallen not due to technological limitations, but due to internal conflicts and philosophical differences. The Grand Arbiter struggled to maintain order. He knew that any decision made in haste could prove catastrophic. He called for further investigation. He ordered the deployment of more probes, disguised as civilian vessels, to gather more data on human technology, their social structures, their vulnerabilities. He reached out not to the humans themselves, but to the various factions within the Dominion, urging them to put aside their self-interests and work together to confront this unprecedented threat. In the meantime, the Xylar High Command devised new strategies, developed new weapons, and studied the data that was slowly trickling in. The deeper they looked, the more they realized the scope of their error. The human vessels, while seemingly primitive, were built with astonishing resilience. Their hulls were constructed of materials unknown to the Xylar, capable of withstanding stresses that would have shattered their own ships. Their engines, though inefficient, were capable of generating immense power. Then came the breakthrough, a discovery that sent a chill down the spines of the Xylar scientists. The humans had built something, not recently, but centuries ago, a vessel capable of traversing the vast distances of space at unbelievable speed. The Xylar had learned that humanity's technological progress had not been continuous. There had been a catastrophic event, an event that had wiped out most of its knowledge, an event that forced them to rebuild from scratch. But even after this calamity, their advanced vessel still stood, a testament to their ambition and capabilities. The Xylar were staring at their own doom. The council chambers grew cold when the news broke. The news was terrifying. The human ability to adapt, to learn, to innovate, it was not just a defensive tactic. It was an offensive strategy, a conscious choice. They had allowed the Xylar to underestimate them, to misjudge their capabilities, to fall into a trap. And now, the trap was closing. Their crude weapons had been specifically chosen, designed to exploit the vulnerabilities of Xylar shielding technology. Their limited energy sources, far from being a sign of weakness, were the result of a deliberate choice, an effort to conserve resources and maximize efficiency. And the precision of their targeting, that unnerving accuracy, was not a fluke. It was the result of years of research, of innovation, of a deep understanding of their enemies. As the gravity of the situation sank in, the arguments in the council chamber ceased. The hawks were silenced. The doves were vindicated. The realization that they had blundered into a war they could not win settled over them like a shroud. The Grand Arbiter, his crystal form radiating a chilling light, addressed the chamber. "We have made a grave error," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "We underestimated our enemies. We dismissed their technology, mocked their limitations. But now we see the truth. Humanity is not a species to be conquered. It is a force to be reckoned with." The Xylar prepared for the worst. They began evacuating their vulnerable colonies. They moved their fleets to defensible positions. They sent out a plea for help to the other empires of the galaxy. But they knew, deep down, that it was likely too late. The humans, they realized, had already won. They had not only defeated the Xylar in battle, they had shattered their pride. The dominion, built on the illusion of invincibility, was crumbling. Meanwhile, on the distant planet of Earth, a human delegation led by a woman named Dr. Aris Thorne prepared to make first contact with the Xyler. The mood was somber, but there was also a sense of grim determination. They knew that the fate of their species, perhaps the fate of the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Dr. Thorne, a woman of sharp intellect and unwavering resolve, stood before the diplomatic corps in a simple, functional jumpsuit. She was surrounded by a team of scientists, diplomats, and military advisors, all meticulously trained for this moment. Their mission was clear: to establish peace, to prevent further bloodshed, and to demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity, despite its past, was capable of building a better future. The room was a stark contrast to the Xyler chamber. It was clean, functional, and devoid of any ornamentation. Everything was designed for efficiency, for practicality. The only touch of artistry was the human flag, a simple blue field emblazoned with a single white star. "All right, people," Dr. Thorne began, her voice calm and steady. "We know what we're up against. The Xyler are an arrogant, expansionist species. They believe themselves to be superior to all others. They underestimated us, and now they are paying the price. But we are not them. We will not stoop to their level. Our goal is peace, not conquest." The delegation nodded in agreement. They had spent years preparing for this moment, studying the Xyler, analyzing their culture, anticipating their reactions. They knew that the key to success lay in their ability to remain calm, to remain rational, and to show that, unlike the Xyler, they were committed to building a lasting peace. The communication with the Xyler began with a carefully crafted message, a plea for dialogue. The response was not immediate. The Xyler, reeling from their defeat, were hesitant to engage. The arrogance of the past faded as the reality of their situation sank in. They had assumed they would be greeted with defiance, with demands for reparations, with a display of superiority. Instead, they received a message of compassion, an offer of understanding. The first face-to-face meeting was held in a neutral space station. Dr. Thorne and her team arrived aboard a sleek, unassuming vessel. They were met by a Xyler delegation led by a representative of the Grand Arbiter. The air was thick with tension. The Xyler, their bodies tense, their mandibles clicking nervously, regarded the humans with suspicion and fear. The humans, in turn, maintained a posture of respect and composure. The negotiations were slow and difficult. The Xyler, accustomed to dominating the galactic stage, struggled to accept the role of equals. They questioned the humans' motives. They sought to understand their technology, their strategies, their morality. Dr. Thorne and her team patiently answered their questions, providing honest and detailed explanations. They demonstrated their technology not to intimidate but to show their capabilities. They explained their strategies not to gloat, but to illustrate their understanding of warfare. They revealed their morality not to judge, but to provide a framework for future cooperation. As the days turned into weeks, the Xyler began to realize the extent of their miscalculation. The humans were not a species to be feared. They were a species to be admired. Their technology, while seemingly simple, was built with ingenuity and a deep understanding of physics. Their strategies, though based on a philosophy of peace, were brilliantly effective. And their morality, their commitment to fairness and justice, was revolutionary. The humans also revealed the reason for their slow technological advancements. They revealed the ancient ship, still traversing the stars at speeds no one thought was possible. Humanity had been set back, not by a weakness of its own, but by its own ambition. Centuries ago, they had developed technology that threatened to destabilize the fabric of space-time itself. They had gone too far, tried to understand something they could not. This technology would have destroyed the universe itself. This arrogance had destroyed them, in a way. The humans explained that they had learned from their mistakes. They had retreated, they had simplified, they had dedicated themselves to the pursuit of knowledge, of peace, and of the greater good. Humans offered the Xyler a deal. They would share their technology not to dominate but to help. They would provide assistance in rebuilding the Xyler infrastructure not to exploit but to uplift. They would share their knowledge not to control but to educate. In exchange, they asked for nothing but cooperation, understanding, and a commitment to peace. The Xyler Council went into a frenzy. The offer was so generous that it made no sense. It violated every principle they had ever known. Why would the humans do this? What was their true agenda? Fear and suspicion still ran deep. Some of the council members saw the offer as a trap, a ploy to weaken the Dominion. Others saw it as an opportunity, a chance to rebuild, to learn, to grow. The Grand Arbiter, wrestling with the implications, convened an emergency meeting. The chamber was still echoing with the whispers of humanity. The old fears lingered. The new hope battled against the old ways. "I confess," the arbiter began, his voice barely audible. "I do not understand them. They are unlike any species we have ever encountered. Their logic is alien. Their generosity is unprecedented. But I also see something else. I see hope. I see a future." The debate raged for days. The various factions within the Xylar Dominion fought for their agendas. The Hawks wanted to reject the offer. The Doves wanted to accept. The House of Shtar, their military pride still wounded, was torn. They wanted to lash out to seek revenge. But they also knew that they were outmatched, that a war against humanity would be a suicide mission. The Kython, the House of Wisdom, was the deciding vote. They held a long conversation with the human delegation, seeking to understand them further. They delved into humanity's history, their literature, their philosophy. They studied their art, their music, their science. They found that the humans' value of life and their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good was unprecedented. They came to the conclusion that the humans' offer was genuine, and that the Xylar had everything to gain by accepting. The Xylar Council, after weeks of debate, made a decision. They accepted the humans' offer of alliance. The news reverberated through the galaxy. The other empires, the other species, watched with a mixture of shock and disbelief. This alliance was the beginning of a new era. The Xylar Dominion and the humans began working together. They shared technology. They exchanged knowledge. They built a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. The Xylar learned from the humans, and the humans learned from the Xylar. Together, they began to reshape the galaxy. But the alliance was just the beginning. The humans had sensed a disturbance, a cosmic tremor. Their old ship had detected a series of strange energy readings coming from the depths of space. A signal, ancient and powerful, was calling out. Dr. Thorne and her team gathered to discuss the new discovery. "The signal is coming from outside of the galaxy," said Dr. Jian Li, the chief astrophysicist. "It is incredibly strong, and it appears to be artificial." "Artificial?" asked General Marcus Cole, head of the military division. "Are you saying that this signal was created by someone?" "It's not just someone," Dr. Li continued. "It's something massive, something that predates any civilization we know of, including our own. The signal has been traveling for billions of years." Dr. Thorne paused, her mind racing. "So we are not alone, and we have to find the source. If that signal is artificial, it has a purpose." The Xylar Council was brought to attention by the humans. The old fears gave way to an old form of excitement. The humans proposed a joint mission, a deep space expedition to investigate the source of the signal. The Xylar, realizing the importance of the situation, readily agreed. The humans and the Xylar, with a shared purpose, prepared for the greatest voyage in the history of the galaxy. They built a new vessel, an amalgamation of human and Xylar technology, a symbol of their unity. The ship was a testament to the power of collaboration, a vessel that could traverse the vast distances of space at speeds that were previously unimaginable. The ship was an enigma, but the humans and the Xylar knew that they had to go, even though their knowledge of the universe had just grown. They set off for the unknown, towards the source of the signal. The journey was long and arduous. They faced countless dangers. They encountered unexpected challenges. But they persevered, driven by a shared sense of curiosity, a shared commitment to discovery, and a shared hope for the future. The crew was a mixture of humans and Xylar, working together seamlessly. They were scientists, engineers, diplomats, and warriors. They were united by their differences. They were united by their shared mission. They were, in a sense, a new civilization, a synthesis of two very different species, working together to explore the vast expanse of the cosmos. As they approached the source of the signal, the readings intensified. They detected a massive structure, a colossal artifact that defied all known laws of physics. It was a relic of a bygone era, an abandoned megastructure the size of a solar system. The interior was labyrinthine and vast, containing wonders beyond imagining. As the exploration team entered the structure, they discovered that it was not merely an abandoned artifact. It was a repository of knowledge, a library of the universe, a record of all that had ever been or ever would be. The walls were covered with inscriptions, with data crystals that contained the history of countless civilizations, the secrets of the universe, the meaning of existence. The humans and the Xylar were awestruck. They had never seen anything like it. They had never imagined anything like it. They had stumbled upon a treasure trove of knowledge that could reshape their understanding of the universe. They were no longer simply explorers. They were the custodians of a lost civilization. But the megastructure was not without its dangers. It was protected by ancient defenses, systems that had remained active for eons. The crew faced constant threats, from malfunctioning security protocols to hostile entities that roamed the corridors. They lost several crew members, the cost of exploration, but the humans and the Xyler never faltered. They were prepared to risk their lives. Finally, they reached the heart of the structure, the source of the signal. There they found a chamber, a massive space that was filled with an otherworldly light. In the center of the chamber was a single object, a crystalline orb that pulsed with energy. It was the source of the signal. As the orb came into focus, the reality of the situation began to dawn on Dr. Thorne. There, within the orb, was a hologram. It depicted a being that was neither human nor Xyler. It was a creature of pure energy, a being of immense power. It was the last of the ancient species that had built the megastructure. "Greetings," the being's voice echoed through the chamber, its tone both ancient and modern, powerful and sad. "We are the Guardians. We have been watching you, humanity. We are the last of our kind. We built this structure to safeguard the knowledge of the universe, to preserve the legacy of all that has been. And now, we entrust it to you." The being went on to explain its purpose. It had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. It had seen the galaxy ravaged by war, by greed, by ignorance. It had decided to leave behind a legacy. But this legacy wasn't just a physical artifact. It was a test of the universe. "You have faced adversity," the being said. "You have overcome challenges. You have forged alliances. You have embraced peace. You are ready. You are the inheritors. You are the future." As the hologram faded, the orb began to glow brighter, its energy intensifying. The Guardian's final act had been to send the signal, the invitation. To warn the galaxy, humanity had to be ready. The megastructure's systems suddenly activated. The ancient defenses powered up, aiming at the humans and the Xyler. The artifact was preparing to self-destruct. The megastructure, designed to withstand the collapse of entire stars, was doomed. The Guardians had planned it. They sent the signal, they initiated the self-destruct sequence, and humanity had to survive. The humans and Xyler realized that they had to escape. Now. They rushed to their vessel, but the ship was already prepared for its final mission, to survive. "Get ready to jump," Dr. Thorne commanded. The humans and the Xyler worked together with the new ship as their vessel. They left. The megastructure imploded. And in that moment the signal went silent. The threat had been removed, the mission complete, humanity had won. Back on Earth, Dr. Thorne sat in her office looking out at the stars. The universe was still there, vast and unknowable. The future was still uncertain, but now it was also filled with hope. The Xyler Council sat in silence, contemplating the vast expanse of space. They had lost countless members. They had endured untold dangers, but now the future belonged to them. General Cole, the veteran of countless wars, walked over. "We did it," he said softly. "We did," Dr. Thorne said, "but it's just the beginning." The humans and the Xyler had learned that their differences, their fears, and their cultural misunderstandings were small compared to the greatness that they could achieve. They had faced their fears, and they had become a beacon of hope, not just for their species, but for the entire galaxy. The humans and the Xyler together would shape the future of the galaxy. They would build a new civilization, a civilization based on cooperation, understanding, and a commitment to peace. And as they set out on their journey, they knew that they would be forever united by their shared experience, by their shared struggle, and by the shared hope that they had discovered in the depths of space. Dr. Thorne rose and approached the window, staring out at the stars, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think they finally get it." From across the chamber, she heard the sound of the Grand Arbiter, the crystal of his being radiating a faint glow. "We do," the Arbiter responded, his voice filled with a newfound respect. "We do." And then in the silence of space, they knew that their journey had just begun. Their ships turned towards the unknown. The galaxy awaited. The future was theirs, and humanity, with its unexpected ethics, its astonishing logic, and its unwavering belief in the power of unity, was ready to meet it.